Okay. Hello and very good evening, everyone. Um, uh, Thank you to those who've already joined us live, right on time. Let us give maybe just a couple of few more minutes to those who are yet to join. And if you're already here, you know the drill. In the comment section, drop your name, what position you are vying for, your constituency, and let us just get to know those who are present today. And as you can see from your screen, we have a session on policy today and how we are, going to, form or turn those technical terms that we have in our heads to something that is consumable by the community. So in the next 50 seconds, as we get other people joining, we are going to be driving right into it. Okay. So I guess it's time. And thank you so much to everyone that has joined us today. Um, um, my name, of course, is Adam Shem, still remains to be. And I am the Programs Associate at Liberty Sparks. And welcome to session 5 of the Mtarajiwa Rais program. And today we are going to be working or looking at translating policy into voter benefits. And we are going to be looking at, how these, technical policy languages can be changed from, kitchen table to generally issues. And this is important because one of the biggest mistakes that many leaders and aspirants make is assuming, like we've already even figured out from other sessions, is that we get to assume that voters are interested in complicated policy languages or maybe statistics or political jargon, while in reality, most citizens are just asking for what is your, things that are so simple, like what is your macroeconomic framework. They are asking if are they able to find jobs, will their businesses survive. They want to know why the cost of living is so high, and will the quality of the roads be improved, will their taxes make sense and be put into proper use. And so they just want to generally know how a certain policy will improve their daily life. And that is, what I tend to believe we call kitchen table issues, because it is the real everyday concerns that, people discuss at home, in markets, at the border stages, in salons, and even during barazas. And the ability to be able to connect policy to those everyday realities is what separates leaders who sound intelligent from leaders who actually understand or are even understood and trusted by the voters. And so, in this session, we are going to explore how to simplify complex ideas without losing meaning, how to frame policy around real voter experiences, and just how to be able to move from more technical explanations to practical benefits that resonate with the people. And we will also look at how successful leaders connect governance, taxation, healthcare, businesses, education, and even economic policy to everyday life in ways that people can immediately understand. And I hope that by the end of today's session, we are going to begin thinking differently, not just as people who understand policy, but as leaders who can make policy more understandable, more consumable, more relatable, and even more actionable for the people that we are yet, or the people we are serving. And this session is going to be delivered to us by none other done by our guest who is already here. Let me just bring him up to the stage right now. And our guest of today is Mr. I hope using Mr. Bailey is the right salutation. Mr. Bailey Richard, whose strategic communications and who is a strategic and communication campaign advisor with 20 years experience in the UK and Africa. He specializes in public sector communications, government, that is generally around government, politicians, and public institutions. He has an excellent record as an advisor to presidents, prime ministers, cabinet ministers, generals, judges, and ambassadors, and has developed and implemented hugely successful strategies to communicate complicated policy agendas and issues to media, electorates, and all interested audiences. He is a powerful and innovative communicator and influencer with particular expertise in getting key messages to multiple audiences. Formerly, he was a locally elected representative in his own right, and he understands both the political imperative and the reality of good people forecast and communications on the ground. He has worked with the highest levels of government in the UK, Kenya, Somalia, Libya, South Sudan, and Morocco. And as we bring him up, please, you can drop some round of applause in the comment section. Remember to sign in your attendance for today. And Mr. Bailey, if you can hear me, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And good evening to everybody. I hope you will be able to hear me and see me throughout the whole of this presentation. I hope my internet holds up. So the first thing I would like to say is that I come to you with no political agenda whatsoever. I don't have any allegiances to anybody. Everything I say is impartial. It's just general standard advice that I would give anybody in your shoes. So I want you to feel certain that I'm not coming at this from any particular agenda. Obviously, it's Chatham House rules, so I get to tell you my best advice, and you get to ask me questions, and knowing that hopefully knowing that this won't leave the room. So let me begin. Yes, next slide. First slide, Shem. Can you hear me? There we go. So as Shem said, my name is Richard Bailey. I'm 55 years old, and I've been a specialist campaign and communication strategist for around 30 years, with experience in political, government, security, communications roles in UK and Africa. It's likely that you would want to know just a little bit about me to know whether you should listen to a word I have to say or not. So I'm just going to very quickly skip through a few thoughts. I can see that some of my slides are the layout is changing a bit. So I'll just skip through. As Shem said, I've worked in UK and 5 countries of Africa. I've been in Kenya for the last 15 years and worked in Somalia, Libya, South Sudan, Kenya, and Morocco. I suppose my overall ethos is vision, strategy, narrative, messaging, effect. And it's the word effect that is critical to everything we're going to talk about today, because strategic communication, having a strategy, requires an effect. It requires the communication to result in something. So we're going to talk about that quite a lot. Next slide, Shem. So yes, as Shem said, I have had the pleasure of serving presidents, prime ministers, more cabinet secretaries than I know what to do with ambassadors, judges, and generals. over my 30 years, and had a lot of fun doing it. From an election campaign perspective, I put on the screen just a brief snapshot of the campaigns that I've been involved with, all the way back to 2001 general election in the UK, working with William Hague as one of his press officers, and also then representing myself. I ran my own election campaigns as a councillor, your equivalent of an MCA in Cambridgeshire, and I won 2 consecutive swings over 12%. And I lost with the first one, I'll come to that shortly, and won with the second. I supported the presidential campaign in Somalia. I assisted with primarily the drafting of the manifesto in 2017 in Kenya. I led the campaign strategy in Morocco between 2018 and 2021. Sorry, that's a typo. In 2022, I assisted a Machakos County governor candidate with his campaign, again, leading on narrative and messaging and the full creation of the manifesto that we'll look at very closely shortly. At the end of the day, I see myself as the bridge between policy, messaging, and the execution of communication. So it's all about, for me, it's all about taking a policy, an idea, a thought, turning it into a message, and then executing communication as effectively as possible. Next. So I just wanted to connect with you and show you that I have in fact sat exactly where you're sitting, or the majority of you. For those of you who are MCA aspirants, I've been where you are. I stood in my own community in Cambridgeshire, Buckden Ward in Huntingdonshire on the district council. I've knocked on doors. I've handed out leaflets. I've done everything you're about to do. So I just wanted to kind of connect with you on a very personal level that I've done what you're doing. I've been where you're sitting. And so what I have to say, I hope will have some kind of down-to-earth feel to it. Next slide. So very quickly, you can see there, in my first election in 2004, if you look at the bottom, I lost by 96 votes with 665 votes in my ward. And then the next election, next slide, Shem. The next election, I won with 745 votes, a majority of about 200. So in both cases, about a 12% swing in my favor. And I just thought I'd put those up for your interest. And just to conclude on the experience basis, next slide, Shem. In Morocco between 2018 and 21, I was the campaign strategist for a guy called Aziz Akanouche and the RMI party. And in a 3-year innovative digital campaign, we took a fringe party, 4th in parliament with 37 seats, to 1st with 102 seats in a landslide election victory. And that was possibly one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my life. Next slide. A German think tank, a bit like Liberty Sparks, did a review of the election campaign in 2022, and you can see in yellow what they said, that it was the most effective and creative campaign of all the parties. My boss was the most visible, and we activated on numerous social media platforms before and during the elections. So a really good experience. Right. Oh, sorry. And just finally, my kind of main skill set, or the thing I'm most proud of, is my manifesto writing. So I do a huge amount of manifesto writing, whether it's at county level or national level. And again, it's about taking policy ideas and trying to transform them into ideas that ordinary people can grasp, can seize hold of and act upon. Right. So that's my introduction done very quickly. So I was given a brief for this, all about moving from technical policy language to kitchen table issues, framing our messages for different voter segments, simplifying complex policies into relatable campaign messages, developing clear candidate value propositions, crafting practical stump speeches, and campaign talking points. So I've broken that down into a 6-point kind of lecture this evening, and I hope you'll bear with me as we go through it. You can read that for yourself. So I'm not going to read every slide from top to bottom. So bear with me. You'll have to do some work for yourself. Okay, so I wanted to start with a kind of a simple statement, and that is politics versus policy. Because I guess in Kenya, some people would argue that if you're with the right party in the right part of the country, of the right demographic, all you have to do is turn up, and people will vote for you. So there's a huge amount of candidates out there sometimes who would push policy to the side in favor of just politics, just turning up to all the events, making sure you're visible, being with the right party and with the right baseball cap, and if luck goes with you, you'll be okay. But the problem with that concept is that it's very short term. Political only campaigns, they might deliver you a result, a one-off result if you're lucky. But if you have any ambition to be in politics for longer than one term, it's not going to help you. At some point, somebody's going to ask you for your opinion on something. Somebody's going to ask you what you're going to do about something in your community. And if you don't have an answer, if you can't reassure people that you know what the problems are and have some idea as to how you're going to solve them, none of your politics is going to help you. Because at the end of the day, politics is local, and politics is about what people care about nearest to them. It's what affects their lives on a daily basis. So in actual fact, as I'm sure every other speaker in this series has told you, understanding the problems of your communities and having a policy idea to fix it, to solve it, to offer your constituents is incredibly important. And it is backed up with good politics, who you know, where you are, what you're saying, who you're standing beside. All the politics side of life you can bring into this, but unless you have a policy foundation based upon your understanding of the challenge of people's lives, you're going to struggle. Next slide. So I just want to skip through a couple of thoughts about campaigning that have occurred to me over the years. The first one and the most important one is that election campaigns are a place where reason, rational argument, and emotion collide. But in my experience, emotion always wins. The way people feel matters more than what they think they know or what they're told. You can see it in America, you can see it in Britain, you can see it all over the place. Often elections are won and lost on a party's ability to connect with how people feel. And elections essentially are a choice. You define yourself and you frame that choice as you want it, or your opponent will do it for you, and you won't much like how he does it or she does it. So you really have to take charge of your campaign. You're not a passenger. You are the driver in your locality. When you get the seat, when you get the ticket, you're in charge. Your campaign is up to you. Next one. So an effective election campaign, in my experience, identifies and establishes the voter's primary motivation for voting and tap into the emotions that drive it. You need to show that you understand your voters' lives and their daily struggles, sense the mood, and speak to how people feel. You need to promote a record of delivery and future promises that deliver for their needs, concerns, and priorities. And you need to offer solutions that will impact them positively and directly. Connect with your constituents through actions, not platitudes. Next slide. You won't have, I'm sure, the resources to put together a campaign team like this, but these are the kind of areas that you should be trying to think about bringing in volunteer support. The most important ones are in bold. You need to have a chief of staff. You need to have a sidekick upon whom you can rely night and day to keep you grounded, to reassure you, to have conversations with, to be beside you the whole journey. You need to find someone who can write. You need to have a writer who can bring together ideas, put together talking points, provide you with written documents that just help you when you're speaking, when you're meeting people, when you're visiting parts of your constituency. Most importantly, you need photography and video. You absolutely must have somebody in your team who can operate a phone at the very least, a camera preferably, someone who can maybe do a little bit of simple editing for content. If possible, you should have someone separate to that as a digital social media manager. When we get to the end of this, you'll see that social media offers you the chance to be your own newsroom. So you can generate your own content, and if you package it well, you can distribute it and have it do a job for you. And the other most important person is somebody who goes ahead of you, somebody who gets a week or two ahead of you in the calendar, in the diary, and is going to visit the places you're going to visit next week, the week after, getting the lay of the land, making sure that all the facilities are right, making sure that you're briefed properly so that you're not walking into events and visits blind. So if you can find someone who can get ahead of you in your calendar and do recce's for you and put everything in place before you get there, you will find your campaign goes a lot more smoothly. Next slide. I'm going to encourage you to sit down and on a single piece of paper, draw a timeline for the whole of your campaign. This is the one-page campaign timeline that we used in Morocco. Everything on one page, everything mapped out so that at any point you can see exactly where we're kind of supposed to be. Now, you can't mirror this, but you can design it in such a way that you are making sure that everything you want covered in your campaign is properly laid out, and you allocate time and space to it. You've only got 15 months left. You don't have a lot of time. And so you're going to have to use that time. You're going to have to organize that time incredibly effectively. So again, a timeline on one piece of paper like this is critical to you getting the best out of your campaign. I can take you through that in more detail later if you want to. Next slide. The next thing I want you to do is write down a campaign strategy. This again is the one we used in Morocco. It's very simple. What it does is make sure that at every point, at every moment over the next 15 months, you know exactly that everything you're doing serves the strategy. The first point must talk about you. It must talk about who you are, what you have to offer, and why anybody should vote for you. The second point should talk about your constituents, your people. You should make sure that you are focusing your campaign on real people, the real people who are going to vote for you and who you are going to serve. The third point is about your main policy ideas, your main issues, probably 3. And you're going to make sure that in your strategy, you describe exactly how you're going to support those 3 issues or 4 issues throughout your campaign. The fourth is a statement on how you're going to communicate. And the fifth is about how you're going to run the campaign. Are you going to be a passenger or a leader? Are you going to be an actor or a reactor? It's all about making sure that you have a strong idea as to how you're going to run a campaign over the next 15, 16 months. Next. The next thing I want you to do is sit down with a friend and truly answer a few soul-searching questions. For you to make progress, for you to run a good campaign, you need to know your own pluses and your own minuses. You need to know what you're good at, what you're not good at, how you are perceived by people. Do they even know who you are? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What is your Achilles heel? How secure is your backing? Where is your base? How do we build from it? And how do we position you? So you've got to take some time to sit down and answer some difficult questions about you and how you're going to come across to your people. Next. And the next one simply asks you to revise something that I know you covered a couple of weeks ago, which is, depending on what electing position you are standing for, what can you do and what can't you do? There's nothing worse than launching a campaign based on policies or issues that are beyond your remit, that are above your pay grade, that you cannot execute. People will very quickly challenge you if you pretend to be able to do something or make promises about things you cannot deliver. So be very clear. What is the remit of your elected position or the position you're seeking? What is your job? And what can you and can't you do? Because if you get that wrong, you're going to get quite a lot of things wrong. So, and again, I know you covered policy in previous talks, so I'm not going to labor any of these points for too long. But the most important thing you have to do, there are 2 things in terms of research that you have to do. You have to characterize your constituency and you have to know your people. So when you are characterizing your constituency, you're asking basic questions about geography, demography, economics, social dynamics, livelihoods, agriculture, industry, tourism. You're asking yourself, what makes my constituency tick? What are its good points? What are its bad points? How do we interact with the rest of the country? How much do they depend on us? How much do we depend on them? What do we get from them? What do we give them? So characterizing your constituency will help you, and you write this down, it will help you properly get to know the environment you and your constituents live in, how you relate to each other, how you relate to the rest of the country. And it's really important for the development of policy, just to get these basic characteristics down on paper. Next. Then you've got to know your electorate. And you've got to find as much detail as you possibly can about the people you're representing. You need to know their gender. You need to know the gender balance. You need to know the age brackets. You need to know how many people you've got in each age bracket. You need to know marital status. How many of them are in families? How many are single? How many are elderly? You need to know ethnicity, where that's relevant. You certainly need to know education levels, wherever you can possibly find it. You need to know employment status. Are they employed, unemployed, self-employed? How do they make their living? And you need to know a basic idea of, if possible, the general status of wealth and income in your constituency. Now, most people stop there and they break their audience down, they break their constituency down just by gender, age, education, employment. I want to give you a slightly different segmentation methodology, one that I've used in other elections. You can break your audience down not according to who they are, but according to the kind of lives that they live and represent, because it helps you understand what kind of issues will genuinely move different segments of your constituency. So here, for example, and there are lots of these different segments you can look up online, but I've given you 6 to start with. You've got a group of people called the left behinds. They are typically men between about 45 and 60 who have been marginalized, overlooked, or left worse off due to rapid social, economic, or technological process. They're guys who worked all their life. They thought they were doing the right thing. They did their best for their family, but life and politics and governance seems to have forgotten about them and left them behind. And there are things in your constituency that you can do to help those people. You then have the worker bees. These are both men and women who work hard, do everything right, but feel that work just doesn't give them the rewards they were told it would bring. Maybe you've got people doing 2 jobs, or you've got people who think that if they just work hard, politics, governance will give them what they need, and their life will be good. But they're discovering that isn't necessarily the case. Then you've got a group called the Kenyan mothers. In every community, the women are the backbone and support system of our families, our communities, and even to some degree the country. But does politics give them any support? Does it make their lives easier? Does it balance out the work, the effort they put into us? Does it help them? Does it enable them to provide that support system as well as it could? The answer in most cases is no. You then have 3 different types of youth. You've got ambitious youth, ambitious underachievers, and disenchanted youth. Essentially, ambitious youth they're young optimists. They're driven, they're strong, they're resilient, they're determined to succeed, and they're willing to put in the effort despite the challenges. They will never give up. You then have ambitious underachievers. These are the hopefuls. They have grand plans, they have a strong desire for success, but they can't make it, and they blame others for their situation, their failure. They're constantly attributing blame for their own failure to politics, to governance, to the way things around them operate. And then you've got the disenchanted youth, the pessimists, a generation of young people who feel disillusioned, let down, disconnected from society, economics, and political institutions. They are nihilists, they're anarchists, they're just not willing to operate with the system anymore because they don't think the system respects them, helps them, supports them, or even knows who they are. So these are different ways of segmenting your constituents once you've got a good idea of who they are and where what they're doing. I can't give you precise details on where to get all that information, but I know that county governments have excellent records of who they've got in their county. You can get good demographic breakdowns from all sorts of different sources, and I'm sure our friends at Liberty Sparks will help you find sources of research information. So we're now going to move swiftly to identifying the issues and framing the policy. Now, again, I know you've covered quite a lot of kind of the way you identify policy. So again, I'm not going to labor this, but I do just want to make sure we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. You have about 10 to 12 principal categories of issues in most parts of the country. Obviously, different parts of the country will differ in the importance of issues. But essentially, you're looking at water, education, healthcare, roads and transport, agriculture, industry, tourism, business, employment, urban planning, or the absence of it, environment, diversity and inclusion, and I'm mainly talking about handicapped people, blind, deaf, physically handicapped, mentally handicapped there, and service delivery. And when you start properly looking at your constituencies and your wards, you're going to start identifying, or you should start identifying pretty quickly where the most serious or where the most difficult problems lie. And then you have to go through a very simple five-phase process. You have to ask yourself in each of these categories, what is the problem? How do I define what the problem is? Is it that people are still walking 5 miles to fetch water? Is it that classrooms are overcrowded, or you don't have enough teachers, or resources are low? Do you not have sufficient healthcare? Do you not have sufficient medicine? Are healthcare processes working for you? Is the referral process working? Are your roads of a decent standard? What is your public transportation system like? Is it reliable? Is it working for the people? Etc., etc., etc. You then ask yourself, who does this affect? Does it affect everybody, or does it affect certain groups of people? Then you have to ask yourself, how can it be fixed? What are the ways in which we might solve this problem? And then, of course, what would we need to do that? What resources would we need? What representation would we need? Who would do it? how can it be delivered? Is it something the governor has to do? Is it something an MP does? Is it something national government does? What is it? What will it take to deliver the solution to the problem in any of those categories? And then you have to answer the final question, which is, what can I, in whatever position you're seeking, what can I do, or what can I promise to do? And sometimes all you can promise to do is campaign for something, is to campaign tirelessly to make something happen, because it's not actually within your remit, but you can hold the governor or your MP to account, and you can tell people, I'm going to campaign on this issue until it gets fixed. You can show an awareness of the problem, you can have an idea as to how it gets solved, and then you can run a campaign to make sure that the right people are pressurized into getting it done. The most important thing I need you to do is remember that out of all this process, what you're looking for are the little gems, the little issues that give you an opportunity to spot a problem, find a solution, and implement it. Because it is upon tiny little stepping stones of achievement that you build confidence, you build political strength, and you set yourself up for a long career. So you've got to start small. You've got to look for the little things in life. When I was in my constituency, my ward back in England, there were three things that really, there were three issues that I discovered were most important to people. There was youth activities, finding something to do for the youth. There was affordable housing, i.e., we needed more houses in the village that the working class could afford. And there was a problem with a roundabout in the village that needed fixing. And so when I did this for my whole ward, there were lots of problems. Most of them I couldn't do anything about. But in my little village, I could identify three things that I could campaign on, understand the problem, provide a solution, and implement it if they voted for me. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. I'm going to ask you to look very carefully at all the issues and the problems you come across, and then I'm going to ask you to pick the ones that give you the best campaigning opportunity. Next slide. Okay, we're moving to the manifesto section. I just want to say a few things before we move into that. I'm going to use the Machakas manifesto that I wrote in 2022 as a kind of template upon which to draw a number of different ideas and themes and so on. So when it comes to setting out your program, when it comes to setting out your manifesto, you have a whole range of options in front of you. You can do a leaflet. You can do an online document, a digital document. You can do a magazine. You can do all sorts of different things. You can even do several different leaflets over different periods of time where you start building up a picture. It really depends on your resources. And It depends on your resources, it depends on your time, it depends on your energy. In my village in 2005-06, I was using periodic leaflets, just 4 pages, just a simple A3 piece of paper with 4 pages, and it would contain little bites of information, or it would focus on a particular issue that I was trying to promote at that particular time. When it came to Machakas in 2022, we took a different approach, and I'm going to show you in more detail now what we did in terms of turning policy into communication that people could understand. Shem, are you able to put up the PDF that I sent you? It's a little bit clearer for people to read. I will send everybody, of course, or you will be provided with soft copies of everything you're seeing tonight. So if there's anything you can't see, please don't worry, you will get it. Shem, are you able to put the PDF up? I hope you can all hear me. I hope you can all. There we go. Can we go to the front page? Okay. Right. We're only getting half of it on the screen, but don't worry, Shem. I'll guide you. I'll guide you as I go through it. There we go. That's better. So, as an American politician once famously said, all politics is local, and by which he means it doesn't matter what's going on at the national level. Doesn't matter what the big debates are going on in the country. Voters are primarily driven by issues affecting their daily lives, their homes, their immediate communities. And as Bill Clinton's campaign strategist once said, it's the economy, stupid. People are most motivated by economic affairs, economic issues. What is going to make them poorer? What is going to make them richer? What is going to give them opportunity? What is going to take opportunity away? When they stand in that polling booth with a pen hovering over your name, they're asking one question. Is this guy going to help make my life better, or is he going to make my life harder? And if you need to answer that question in your manifesto, you need to answer that question in everything you do and talk about over the next 15 months. So when you're selecting a style of manifesto, whatever it may be, I need you to think about a few things. You've got to think about content. You've got to think about the information that you want to put in it. You've got to think about imagery, photographs. What imagery do you need to tell the story you're going to try and tell? You need to think about the style, the design. What's it going to look like? How are you going to design it? You then need to think about distribution and, of course, most important, shareability. I've done many manifestos in my time, and when I sat with Zioka in 22, I said to him, "Listen, people make these grand books. You know, they do these enormous great books. Nobody ever reads them. They look good. They make you feel good. They make you feel as though you're communicating with people, but in reality, Nobody's going to leaf through a 50-page manifesto. And so most of the hard work goes down the drain. So I said to him, we need to take a slightly different approach. We need to make this much more relatable, relevant to people. We need to design it in such a way that they can consume the information much more readily. So basically, I invented a newspaper, the Machakas Metro. It doesn't exist, but for this brief period of time, it did. I invented a newspaper because it enabled me to tackle everything he wanted to talk about from a journalistic way, in a journalistic style. And it was almost as if a paper was commenting on this campaign and everything it stood for. And so we set about using a newspaper style, a journalistic style, to make our issues come to life. On every page, on every issue, we look to put in 5 things consistently: a description of the problem, some facts about the problem, a few solutions to the problem, what he was promising, and some quotes, so that you could lift out very easily and consume the information that we were setting across. So can you go to the next page, or even just revert back to the slideshow, Shem? Either page 26 of the slideshow or the next page of the manifesto. Bear with me, people. I apologize for this. Shem, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I'm trying to shift back to the next page of the presentation.
Okay. We're on slide 26. If you're going
Yes.
back to the manifesto, I mean back to the presentation. So this is where you're. Sorry, carry on.
You can see my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay, just a minute.
Thanks. Two slides down. Next page. There we go. So, in working out what the manifesto needs to, the content of the manifesto, one of the most important things is to describe you, the candidate. We need to know, the first thing we want to know is, who are you? What's your background? What do you bring to the table? What's your experience? Why should I trust you with my vote? Who are you? So it's really important to make sure that every time you distribute information, you are making sure that you've got a really brief summary of your CV, a statement about who you are, where you come from, why you want to do this, and what you want to try and achieve. So you've got to try and persuade people that your profile is better than the next guy. You then need to think about ways in which you can summarize the problems or the issues that you want to try and tackle. In Machaka's case, it was pure and simple. The county just wasn't working, literally and figuratively. Processes and mechanisms in the county weren't working, and indeed the unemployment rate was unbelievably high. we also had a problem of service delivery. And so we were able to do a lot of work around bringing to life this idea that the county wasn't working and services were not being delivered properly. You will be able to read a copy of this in much greater detail later, and I apologize, I'm not able to project it as clearly as you would like. Next slide. There we go. So across a double page, the first issue we tackled, one of the most important issues we tackled in Machakas, was water. And again, what I hope you can see there, if you enlarge your screen, is a very short 300-word description of the problem, a few facts about water supply in Machakas, a few quotes, lots of really nice images, lots of images that really tell a story, and then in that red block in the middle, the promise, the pledge. What are we going to do about it? And we made sure that that stands out from the page so that at a glance, you can see very quickly, this is the problem, this is the solution, and this is what he's promising to do about it. And if you go to the next page, Shem, we then did the same thing with healthcare, with education. Next slide, Shem. So on every issue that we could think of that the governor had a position on, we tried to draw out what the problem was and what we were going to do about it. And really the idea here was to keep this all as simple and consumable and attractive to the eye as humanly possible, so that at a glance, your constituents are able to take information away in a very simple manner. Where have you got to? Education. So then we did roads and urban planning. Next slide. And one of the, having been in communications for so long, one of the things I most wanted to do was give it a journalistic feel. So we kind of came up with headlines that summarize the problem, making sure that where we were going to build on something that had been done before, like the road network, we made sure that the headline mirrored what it was we're talking about. But on the urban planning side, we made clear that there is no urban planning in Machakas. Everything is left to chaos. And without it, we live in filth and squalor. So I tried very hard to come up with headlines for these little 300-word articles that really reflected the problem we're trying to deal with. But again, you can see problem, solution, facts, promise on every page. Next page, Shem. Agriculture, environment. We really dug into every element of the county, the county, and we tried to identify the core issue that would galvanize as much support as possible from the widest and broadest section of people, and tap into how people felt, how people perceive their own existence, how people perceive how far behind they are, how much better off they want to be, how much better they want their services to be, how much better they want government to be. You're tapping in, on all of these pages, we're tapping into an emotion, as I described at the beginning. We're tapping into the way people feel, not necessarily exactly what the situation is. Next page. Jobs is almost certainly the biggest issue in the whole of Kenya, and probably in every single county, in every single constituency, and every single ward. At the moment, people in Kenya are really struggling to find employment, to find stability in employment, to find stability in income. People are hustling, people are trying their best, people are doing everything in their power, but the jobs just aren't there. And so it's probably the biggest issue you're going to have to contend with during the next 15 months in your campaign is, I don't have a job. What are you going to do to help me get a job? How are you going to create jobs here? And I think a lot of your work is going to be about identifying the kind of things that can come to your constituency, come to your ward, come to your county, and you can't bring it, you can't do it, but you can campaign on making it happen. You can be the voice that will constantly remind the governor that his job or her job is to bring jobs to the county. As an MCA, your principal job is representation. You are there to represent the concerns, worries, and problems of your constituents, and to represent those concerns at the highest level that you have access to. So in developing some of these ideas, sometimes all you're going to be able to do is promise to campaign, promise to make sure that you will be the pain in the ass to your governor until it gets done, that you will be a permanent, loud voice in the county assembly that makes sure that that issue is never forgotten about until it's fixed. Sometimes you can fix potholes, sometimes you can just campaign on something. As I say, knowing exactly what you're able to do, what your position is able to do, will help you identify issues that you can fix and issues that you can campaign on. And you're going to have to be very clear in your speaking and in your leaflets and manifestos about which is which. What are you promising to do, and what are you promising to campaign on? Okay, I hope that makes sense. I'm looking forward to the questions after this. Next slide. Next slide. Inclusion is actually a bigger issue than you might think it is, especially at county level, especially out in the counties around Kenya. You have a lot of people who are generally not included in society. And I think one of the things that we made sure we talked about was just making sure we leave nobody behind, making sure that we make room for and include everybody in the county, not just the fit and able. And then there's service delivery. I guarantee you that one of the things you're going to have to deal with is the perception of the way the county delivers its services. And my recommendation to you is that you get to know your county assembly and you get to know what's going on in the county and how people are perceiving its service delivery as quickly as you can, because it's going to be a topic of conversation every single day from now to election day. And you're going to have to come up with some words and some thoughts as to how you're going to persuade people that if they vote for you, you're going to try and put something right. Now, what we did, I'll just show you. I'll show you a paper copy. We actually printed this like a nation newspaper. I know you probably might not be able to do that, but we printed it like a newspaper. It opens like a newspaper. It reads like a newspaper. From one end to the middle, it's English. And then when you flip it over, from the other end to the middle, we did it in Swahili. So we made sure that we covered both languages. And then right in the middle, we did a pull-out double-page poster so that people could pin this up in their window or pin this up somewhere, and it just helped the promotion process. So we gave people a nice reminder to vote and how to vote poster in the middle of this, in the middle of our thing. We printed about 50,000 copies, and they were gone inside 4 days. I think they had been completely taken in 4 days, and they were absolutely loved by everybody. So I wanted to show you that, and as I say, you're going to get a copy of that you can actually read and take time to look at. It's impossible for me to sit here right now with people representing wards and constituencies across the whole country and give you precise wording as to what you can say about different issues. What I've tried to do, and when you read the full manifesto, what I've tried to do is show you how you can communicate simply, how you can communicate clearly and in a way that ordinary people can understand. So we can talk about things, and I'm sure you've got questions, and I'm looking forward to them. But right now, the best I can do is show you what has worked before and allow you to think about that and then work out how you can apply some of those lessons to your own situation. And again, it depends on your resources, it depends on your funding, it depends on time, it depends on volunteers and help. So there are a lot of factors that go into it, but clarity and simplicity and emotional connection are the three things you just have to keep in your head at all times when you are thinking about and talking about problems. Be simple, be clear, and be simple, be clear. What was the third thing? Gone. Be simple, be clear. No, my brain has stopped working. I've been talking for an hour and 11 minutes and I can't think. You get the point. Next slide, please. That's going to annoy me for the whole of the rest of the presentation. If anyone wants to write it down in the comments, that would be really helpful. What was the third thing I said? Is anybody listening? There will be questions at the end of this. You know that, right? Okay, we're going to talk now for a few minutes about communication. And again, I can't give you specifics, but I can give you some really fundamental guidelines. I need you to remember that communication, there are hundreds of people out there who will make you think that communication is really difficult, it's complicated, only professionals can do it, you'll never understand it, it's an art, only us communicators know how to do it. It's all rubbish. Communication is unbelievably simple. In your case, it is a simple sentence. What do I have to say? To whom? And in what way? And over what period of time to achieve the effect or the result that I want? The result that you want in this particular case is for people to vote for you. The result you want is for people to line up on election day, walk into the polling booth, find your name, and put a tick beside it. Your job between now and then is to determine what it is you have to say to persuade them to do that. It's not a theoretical thing. It's not I'm just going to tell you some things and it doesn't really matter whether you do anything or not. This communication has to end up with a vote. And I need you to keep that effect firmly in your head at all times. This is a transactional process. I am going to communicate with you, and in return, you are going to be persuaded to vote for me. Perception is reality. Understand that. Don't fight it. Don't argue with it. Don't complain about it. It doesn't matter what you think. If other people perceive something about you, that is the truth as they see it. You can argue, fight, complain, moan, all you like, but nothing will change. What you have to do is be willing to confront the perception and change it. It takes effort, it takes time, and it takes very thick skin. Image is everything. I know that sounds trite and a little bit kind of personal, but the way you present yourself, where you present yourself, who you present yourself with, what you do, everything about you, your image. When people can't hear you, they see you, and they will judge what they think about you based on what they see. So just understand that creating image is unbelievably important to the political process. It's unbelievably important to getting people to listen to you, to want to hear more from you, and to believe that you are connected to their problems. And my final sentence there, communication is about message received, not message sent. You can say something as often as you like, but you have to check what people heard, because it's what they heard that matters more than what you said. And if you're saying something and it's not landing at the other end the way you want it, you've got to change the way you say it. You've got to take responsibility and ownership. Don't keep blaming them for misunderstanding you. This is a common mistake that politicians all over the world make is, well, they misunderstood me. Why don't they understand? I mean, I said it 15 times. They didn't hear you. Or when they did hear you, they heard something different. My favorite quote about communication comes from Al Capone, supposedly, reputedly. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Politics is very simple. He or she who speaks loudly, confidently, assuredly, and clearly will get through. And you have to give people their opinions about you. You have to give people their opinions about the issues that you're talking about, and you have to give people their perception of whether you're the right guy or not. I want you to think about communications as a jigsaw. It sounds a bit weird, but bear with me. when you look at the box of a jigsaw, you see a pretty picture. And then you open the box and you tip everything out on the table, and you've got 1,000 little bits that you've got to stick together. Well, jigsaws are exactly like communication. The picture on the front of the box, that's your vision. That's your goal. That's what you're trying to get to. The individual jigsaw pieces are the tactics and the resources at your disposal. The strategy is how you go about organizing to do the jigsaw. Some people do the outline first. Some people do the sky. Some people do the bit in the middle. Some people do all the red bits. How you go about putting that jigsaw together, that's your responsibility. That's your strategy. The plan is simply the order in which you clip the bits together. And each individual jigsaw piece represents a campaign activity. It might be a press release, an interview, an op-ed, a visit, a social media post. All of these individual bits on their own, they don't seem to say much, but when you clip them all together, you get your beautiful picture. I hope that makes sense. It's the simplest metaphor I have for communication. When you're giving a speech, that is just one jigsaw piece. When you've given 100 speeches, that's part of the whole picture. When you combine that with 1,000 social media posts, the picture starts to take shape. The next thing I want to say to you is about planning. I want you to take away from this the importance of planning your campaign. I want you to use a grid. I don't care whether it's monthly, weekly, daily. I need you to plot what you're going to do, where, when, with who. The reason we use a grid is because lots of things, but primarily it ensures you maintain an awareness of your surroundings, because you can put on the grid not just what you're going to do, but what other people around you are doing and what's going on, so that you stay relevant. It also makes sure you manage your time effectively. It makes sure you don't miss anything. It makes sure you don't miss a part of the constituency, an issue, a group of people. It makes sure that you are consciously plotting how you're going to reach everybody in your constituency or ward, and how you're going to talk about all the different issues, where you're going to visit. It makes you think. But the biggest thing it does for you is it keeps you on track. And it means that when you get knocked off your track, you can get back on it quicker than everybody else. And I guarantee you, events during the campaign will knock you off your grid. There will be moments when you are forced by circumstances to react to something. And that's okay. You're allowed to react to things. But what you cannot do is forget where you were and lose focus. So when we were running this for the government, the grid was all about making sure that when we got knocked off our communication focus, we had something to pull us back very, very quick, and quicker than everybody else. Because the quicker you get back to your campaign and leading the discussion and leading the way, the quicker or the better your campaign will be. Next. Okay. The stump speech. It is by no means an exaggeration to tell you that by September next year, you are going to be sick of the sound of your own voice. You are going to be bored with the number of times you say the same thing. But I'm afraid I have to tell you that at the point at which you are most bored and most sick of the sound of your own voice, that is the moment that people are just starting to hear you. They're just starting to hear you. So I need you to get ready for a very boring 15 months where you're going to say the same thing over and over and over and over again. I make no apologies. I will commiserate with you, but I'll insist that you keep going and get on with it. At the end of the day, the stump speech it's your stock. You're going to speak probably 500 times over the next 15 months. Sometimes it'll be 2 minutes. Sometimes it'll be 10 minutes. Sometimes it'll be half an hour. Sometimes it'll be 45 minutes. You will get on your feet in front of human beings probably 500 times. And every single time you've got to connect with them, communicate to them, and close the deal. A speech is an oral essay. It's designed to be spoken, not read. So when you write it, write as you speak. Say it out loud so that you're constantly rehearsing the way you want to talk. Oratory is the most powerful and the oldest form of communication. It was the thing we first did before we could write, before we had alphabets, before we had books. Oratory, speeches were the most powerful way to move people. From Julius Caesar to Obama and Mandela, oratory has provoked the most profound inspiration and action in history. Speeches are also emotional. They should move people to think and dream. And the key to presenting an effective speech is preparation and practice. You have to know your words inside out. You have to know them well enough to be able to deliver them in your sleep. You must practice. You must make sure that every single word, every single sentence flows smoothly off your tongue so that you're not constantly tripped up. Good leaders don't just stand up and make a speech on the spot. And you will be tempted to do this many, many times. The good ones will carefully prepare beforehand. Next slide. In as many situations as possible, and it won't be possible all the time, but in as many situations as possible, and this is where the grid comes in, when you know where you're going and who you're going to be talking to, I need you to do a quick audience analysis. You need to know who's in front of you. You need to know what is their knowledge of your message. Is it zero? Have they heard it before? Have they maybe picked something up, but not all of it? What do you think their knowledge is of your message at the moment? You need to know a little bit of demographics. How old are they? What gender are they? What education level do they have? What positions do they hold? You might be talking to Boda guys one day, and you might be talking to business leaders the next day. You have to find a way, you have to make sure you know who you're talking to, and you have to get the pitch and tone of your speech spot on for the right audience. You have to know what interest they have in your message. How are you going to make them care? How are you going to make sure that any audience finds a way of caring about or understanding what it is you're talking about? You need to know what your relationship is to the audience. What is their likely attitude to your message? Are you talking to people who are on your side? Are you talking to people who are not on your side? You then need to ask what information does my audience need? What do they want? What can I give them? How do I adjust my message to the audience I'm standing in front of? And what are their expectations? When you go through this, and sometimes it takes 30 seconds, sometimes it takes 15 minutes. But when you do it, you will discover that you can adjust the tone and the content of your speech just a little bit to make sure that you are connecting with people in the right way for their particular status in life, attitude in life, or position in life. Next one. Okay, so for me, I came up with the rule of quarters. There are 4 quarters. There's the first quarter, second, third, and fourth. Now, this applies to any speech of any length in any situation. Whether you're speaking for 2 minutes or 20 minutes, you can still apply the rule of quarters. In the first quarter, in the first 25% of your speech, whether it's 30 seconds or 10 minutes, it's all about connection. It is imperative that in that first quarter of the speech, you find a way to connect to the people standing in front of you. You introduce yourself, you tell people what you want, what you're doing, who you are, why you're doing it. Connect with them on as much of a personal level as you can. Share anecdotes, particularly stories about people, not by name, obviously, but you can introduce stories about what people have told you during the campaign. So, for example, if you're standing in front of a group at a hospital and you're standing in front of a group of doctors and nurses, you might want to connect with them by telling them a story about a constituent you met a week ago who has whatever it may be, and she comes to this hospital and she's been coming for 5 years for regular treatment, and she thinks it's her favorite. It's a time of the week she looks forward to because you're so good at what you do and you care for her, and it's a moment in the week where she feels like she's heard and she can talk to people. So you can give anecdotes about real people and real situations that can connect you to your audience. It lets them know that you know who they are, you know who you're talking to, you have an awareness of what's going on around you. And by introducing people, by making people part of your campaign, again, not by name, but just by generics, you show your constituents that you're listening and that you're remembering and that you're understanding their problems and the challenges they have to go through each and every day. So connect. First quarter of every speech is different to every other one. It's your moment of connection with that audience. The middle half, the middle 2 quarters, 2 and 3, that's where you communicate. This is where you dedicate a half of your speech to the core issues of your campaign. You set out your position, you set out the problem, the fact, the solution, the promise, and you make it as relevant as you can to the audience in front of you. So perhaps you're standing in front of farmers. Well, maybe the day before you were at a factory or you were at a market. And so you can, maybe the farmers you're standing in front of, maybe they don't worry too much about the marketplace in your town or village, but it's really simple to make the connection to enable them to understand that the people they're selling their product to have their own challenges in getting that product out into the market. So you can always find a way of connecting issues to different audiences in a way that they can understand and grasp. So you're going to communicate in that middle half. And then in the final quarter, you're going to do two things. You're going to close the speech and you're going to close the deal. You came for their votes. Now ask for them. Be brave enough to ask for their support. Be brave enough to say, this is me. This is what I want to do. This is why I'm here. This is my experience. This is what I want to do for you. Now give me your support. It's very tempting to skip that last bit. It's very tempting to hope that they heard what you want. It's very easy to hope that they will just do it. But I need you to look these people in the eye every single time and close the deal. Can I have your support? These are the things I want to do. Will you support me? Will you vote for me? I'm asking for your vote. Voters quite like it when you ask them for your support. They warm to it. So please don't forget that part of any speech. Connect, communicate, close. The first quarter and the final quarter, that's where you get to freewheel. The middle half should be as consistent as possible over and over and over again. The middle half is the bit that you're going to get bored of. The first quarter and the final quarter, that's where you get to have a bit of fun. That's where you keep yourself awake and alive and keeping going. I hope that makes sense to you. Next slide. Okay. Again, I would love to go through messaging with you all with real circumstances that you're dealing with. But all I can do from behind this desk is try and give you methodologies, try and give you tools with which to define your messaging. One of the things I've used consistently over the past 20, 30 years is something called the message house. And it's a very simple structured approach to determining crisp, clear, key messages. It structures your thought, creating easy formulas to remember. And when they're easy to remember, they're particularly, when they're easy to remember, you can find them under pressure. They harness the rule of threes, which is a very common tactic in speaking. Always have three examples of everything. Always do everything in threes. They're easily shareable, so that you can keep multiple speakers on message if you need to. You can share your message very simply. Everybody knows what you're thinking. They are vision orientated. They start with a statement, a sentence about what your mission is, what your vision is. They have one simple message, three supporting points, and examples. So you have a mission at the top, your strategic message, supporting message 1, supporting message 2, supporting message 3, evidence. I wasn't sure how much time I was going to have by the time I got to this point. So I haven't done an example for you, but I have one which I can insert into the version of this deck that you're going to receive. Would you appreciate that so that I can bring this to life for you? I imagine you would. So let me keep going. And as I say, if you want me to bring it to life for you in the questions, we can do that. Next sentence. Sorry, next slide. Okay, now let's talk about the nuts and bolts of communication. Because not only are you your principal communicator, but you have to use the media. You've got to use it sensibly and effectively. So let's now talk very quickly, 2 minutes, on conventional media, by which I mean print, broadcast, and online news. I'm going to encourage you at all times to be your own spokesman. Don't let other people speak for you. Don't be too busy to speak to the media. In this day and age, media coverage equals third-party endorsement. If a national or a regional or a local news outlet publishes or prints or broadcasts your opinion, they are effectively giving you third-party endorsement, and they are also giving you shareable links and content. So you're not doing this because you think 1,000 people are watching the news. You're doing it so that 10,000 people can see a clip or a shared link or content from that media interview over social media the following day. So media coverage is still important. To all those of you who think TikTok and WhatsApp and YouTube are the only things worth bothering with anymore, you're not quite right. Media still has high value, but you have to understand what that value is. An article in the newspaper will be read by 500 people, but when you put it on social media, it'll be read by another 3,000. So what you're looking to do is use conventional media to create content and to give you that endorsement that comes with trusted media outlets. The main things you've got at your disposal are interviews, opinion pieces, news stories, and quotes. To ensure that that happens, you need to do two things. You need to build relationships with media, have all their telephone numbers, have all their names, talk to them every week, whether you've got something to say or not. Be part of their ecosystem so that you're sharing information, you're getting information back, and when they want to quote, when they want to comment, they call you. And that's the second thing. Always be available. Never tell a journalist, sorry, I'm too busy, I can't talk to you. Because when you break that bond, they won't come back. They'll find somebody who is available. They'll find somebody who understands how important they are. Build relationships, be available, be your own spokesman, and make sure you are talking to these people the whole time. Next slide. Which brings me to digital social media. In the 21st century, armed with little more than a mobile phone and a computer, I can be my own newsroom. I can film and photograph content. I can edit it. I can post it. You are now able to be your own editor and your own newsroom, and you must take advantage of this. So the first thing you have to do is select, structure, and design your digital platform. You have to choose the platform that suits your audience, not you, your audience. Depending on the demographics of your constituency or ward, you have to know, where are they getting their information? Where do I need to be where they will see me? It is predominantly TikTok, it is predominantly Instagram. Some people are still on X. Some demographics are still on Facebook. Some demographics are on LinkedIn. Most people are in WhatsApp groups. WhatsApp groups are a particular, they're a particular platform where you've got to make sure your content is being shared on various groups. So you've got to find out what groups are out there, and you've got to have friends in those groups making sure that they are sharing your content. You've got to understand what each platform does, who it reaches, how they want it, what they want. You've got to plan your content. You've got to post regularly, and you've got to keep your content consistent and recognizable in design. You know, when you're flicking, and for good Instagram accounts, there's a consistency of color, of design, and it catches your eye. And even when you're flicking at, scrolling at, a reasonable pace, the moment your eye sees a particular design of a page you like, you stop and you go back. You have to create a style and a design, if you can, that stops the thumb. You've got to stop the thumb. And you've got to make your content, you've got to package your content for that platform, for those people, the way they want it, not the way you want it. The more consistent you can make your colors, your design, your style across all your platforms, the more recognizable you will be across the entirety of the online space. So do try where you can and make sure that you are just styling every post similarly, even across platforms, so that people get used to seeing your style. It helps stop the thumb. This is what you're trying to do. You're trying to stop the thumb. Next slide. I think we're nearly done. Are we nearly done? Okay. Final message. I've taken up an hour and 3/4. It's time for me to shut up. I have one final message for you. There are no prizes for second place. Only winners get to change things. If you don't get elected, you go home. And the person who beats you, he gets to change things. He gets to do things. Election campaigns from today, they are a constant vote calculation. If I do this, if I say that, do I win more votes or do I lose more votes? Can I afford to lose those votes? Do those votes matter? Would I like to win votes over here? You are constantly weighing the value of what you're doing and what you're saying and who you're meeting against how many votes you're gaining and how many votes you're losing. You cannot be all things to all men. Don't even try. The moment you start just trying to appease everybody, you will annoy everybody. You've got to be willing and prepared to have a voice, have an opinion, have an idea, have a solution, and understand that some people will disagree with you. What they want to see is that you are determined, that you are intelligent, that you are clear in your thought, and that you have a plan. And even if they don't agree with it, they'll still come with you. So please, everything you do between now and election day must be about winning votes, consciously winning or making that vote calculation. Don't waste your effort, don't waste your resources, and don't waste your time on anything that does not win you votes. very, very quickly, all I want to say is, and my huge thanks to Liberty Sparks. I'm doing this entirely voluntarily because I love it. But for any of you that do get a ticket and do want some help, you are welcome to reach out to me. I can, for very, very affordable rates, help you with some very basic stuff if you want it, and if you're able to do so. And I promise that some of the money will go to the wonderful organization of Liberty Sparks, who have laid on this this series of lectures for you. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope I've gone some way to answering the question that was posed to me. As I say, I can't be specific in answering unless you share some questions with me. I can't be specific in giving you detailed wordings of things, but what I can do is give you examples and tools that you can use to explore your constituency, find the problems, work out what you want to say about them, and come up with the promises and pledges that you want to make to your constituents. And I think if you look at the examples that I'm going to provide you with, you'll benefit from that. Okay, we have a question from Wanyonyi 8135. What happens to many politicians during campaign? They promise many good things to their people, but when they get to power, they don't implement what they promised people. What was actually the problem? Yeah, that's true. Not just in your country, not just in your county, not just in your ward. It's true in my country, in every country. You will discover, those of you that win, you will discover that fighting the campaign is the beginning of the beginning. It's not even the beginning of the hard work. Winning the campaign, fighting the campaign, making promises is unbelievably easy. The hard bit, the really hard bit, the bit that will test you beyond all measure is doing the job. Now, again, I can see many of you rolling your eyes and going, well, we all know why we want to be politicians, and that's fine, I get it. But you do have to do something at the end of the day, especially if you want a long-term career. And I'm afraid the hard bit, the bit you're going to have to really look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself seriously, do I want to do the job? Do I want to fix that problem? Do I want to sort the potholes out? Do I want to get more money into education? Do I want an extra classroom at my village school? You're going to have to ask these really serious questions and commit at the beginning of this campaign to actually doing the job when you get there, and not becoming, as Wanyonyi says, just one of all those politicians that say one thing, and then the moment they're elected, they disappear over the horizon, never to be seen again, and never do anything that they say. Next question. Okay, according to Rory Sutherland, yes, I know him, people are mostly concerned about economic and legal issues. Other disciplines can be safely ignored. How can one, as a result, in summary, plan to solve unemployment? Okay, right. Rory Sutherland is correct. As I said, in that polling booth, doesn't matter what they say to you to your face, they become very selfish. When you walk into a polling booth, you become quite selfish. You become quite self-orientated. And you put a vote against the person you think is going to make your life better or going to make it possible for you to make more money or do better or get a job. As an MCA, as an MP, you can't fix unemployment. But I'll tell you what you can do. You can identify where employment is possible, and you can design campaigns at the local level that constantly bang the drum in the ears of the governor to try and represent the concerns and views of your constituents. So as I say, there are things you can do, there are things you can't do, there are things you can promise, and there are things you can campaign on. And that's all you've got, a voice. And in terms of bigger macro scale things, you just have to use that voice intelligently. And it's about knowing what people want in your part of the world. It's probably agricultural, or it could be industry, or whatever. You will find ways of doing it. How can I identify a genuine team from a group? As you know, in Kenya and many countries, politics is about interests and where the bread is buttered on both sides. Well, that's done Korea. That, in a nutshell, is the art of politics. And you're either good at it or you're not. Because politics is judgment. The definition of politics is judgment. And you have to apply judgment every day. You have to make decisions based on your instincts, your knowledge, your intelligence, your experience, and you have to make decisions for yourself. But here's the thing. You're not going to find anything perfect now, but the only way to change anything is to get in power. So sometimes you have to play by the rules of the game as you find them in order to get to a position where you can make a difference. And I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but I'm afraid sometimes you have to accept to get to a position to change things, you've got to play by the rules that exist now. And trust me, same in my country. Nothing different. Why do you think many good policy ideas fail to connect with voters during campaigns? And how can young leaders communicate policy in a way that feels personal, practical, urgent to everyday citizens? When you read the manifesto, I hope you'll see at least how we attempted to make policy interesting. Fundamentally, policy issues, challenges, problems, they require time and effort, and it's easier to just hurl insults at your opponent and accuse them of doing things they didn't do and play grandstanding politics than it is to actually tackle issues. So I think the blame is partly on our feet in that we think our electorate won't, we think that they won't give us the time to unpack a problem. So we don't try hard enough to find a way of making it interesting. And the reason I put this on the screen was because, and the reason you're going to get a copy of it, is because I worked night and day to try and take policy ideas and make them tangible, make them relevant, put them into words that people could go, yes, I agree. I agree with that. They don't understand the complexities. They don't need to understand that. What they need to do is understand that you understand it. So it's about making it interesting, basically. Next one. If you only had 2 minutes in a crowded baraza to convince voters that your policy proposal matters to their daily lives, how would you explain the link between government policy and issues like school fees? Is that the only one? Jobs, business permits, healthcare, and the cost of unga, if I had 2 minutes. Right, well, the first thing to say is that this is where emotion kicks in. This is where your ability to connect with how people feel is so important. See, the problem is people will be repeatedly told, oh, things are great, things are happening, things are working, things are in the process of, we're trying to fix things, we're doing our best. But people instinctively know how they feel. They know when they feel like they're poorer, when they feel like life is harder, when things aren't working. So the first thing is, if I have 2 minutes, I tap into the emotion, I tap into the way people feel and perceive these issues rather than getting into statistics and numbers and plans and strategies. You have to connect with how people feel about school fees. So if I have 2 minutes, for the first 40 seconds, I connect with people. I share my understanding of their problem, of our problem in our locality. And I use very local examples to make that connection. For the next minute, I will have developed localized solutions. So I know my county government well enough to know where bursaries come from, where help comes from, where the local education budget is managed from. So I'm able to use localized examples of ways in which we might be able to do things better. And then in the final section, as I say, I look to close by trying to make sure that we understand each other, that not everything is immediately reconcilable, but I'm going to be your voice. I suppose that's probably how I would go about it. In this political journey, what I have come to know, be simple, be yourself, be a role model, be interactive to local people, especially during their needs, listen to their grievances. By giving back, keep going. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, I think that's the end. I think that's the end of the comment.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Bona Bailey, for joining us today. 2 hours. I think this is the longest. This is the longest session that we've had so far, and yeah,
I apologize.
Yeah, we had a lot. We had a lot to cover. Yeah, and I'm happy that we've come to the end. We've had a lot of engagement, quite responsive and very good questions on this session, really. Just trying to understand, how do we make sense? I mean, the policies and what we want to do make sense to ourselves, right? So just getting to understand now how we make all that make sense to the electorate and the people that we are asking for votes from. It's very important, even as we still getting ready for the campaigns. I know some of us are already in the campaign mode. Some of us are already making inroads in our wards and constituencies. We've been seeing a lot of you guys on social media. We've seen a lot of you getting mentioned. Much happy that we could get this far and try to connect these issues from a policy point perspective and into the real issues that people are dealing with. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope that you've been able to sign in today. Remember, the next phase of our program is going to be all about moving with some of you into your constituencies and your wards as you move around asking for votes, having discussions with the electorates and such. And it's only fair that we give a priority to guys that are showing up for every session, that are delivering on what might be asked from your end. So once again, I want to say Asante sana, everybody. Duncan, Regan, Mike, we see you, Isaac, really, everyone, Angela, thank you for joining us, everybody. And Bonabeli also, thanks a lot. We appreciate the support that you're giving, considering that, yeah, we're just getting started on what we are doing and our journey. We appreciate so much. And I hope that this with our relationship with Liberty Sparks only gets better, only gets keeps on growing to the future, even as we explore more as how we can change hearts and minds in our society. Asanteni sana, everybody. Let me say a good night because it's already getting pretty late to everyone. And next week, of course, on Wednesday, there's an holiday. So we shall be taking a break from our sessions and then resuming the following week with our remaining 3 sessions. Thank you very much and good night, everyone.